Hello, everyone. My name is Kenji Kimura. I'm a current clinical informatics fellow at Mass General Brigham. I like to share with you what I've been learning, and this video is from Chapter 5 from Dr. Hersh's book. I put the reference there. This video is very intro of that chapter, giving a big overview about interoperability and the standards that we have. And some organization exists, and I'm hoping to give you more of a bird's eye view about the chapter so that the next following videos, or if you are trying to read it on your own, maybe it'll give you a little bit of an easier, smooth entry into this big topic. All right, so let's get into it. So in 2009, the HITECH Act passed. However, the HITECH Act, it was great that everybody was starting to use electronic medical record system. There was a huge incentive for it. However, interoperability was not really the priority there. Everybody adopted the EMR, but there still was a communication difficulty between the hospitals that were using EMRs. I'm sure if you are a medical practitioner working in the hospital, you've probably experienced this. A patient is trying to transfer care to another hospital, so you had to actually print out all the paper, all the electronic medical records, record of that patient, and print it out, uh, find the fax number of the hospital B that the patient is transferring to, and then fax it over there, call the hospital and make sure that they've received it. That was one of my big responsibility as a medical student. So I remember it being a pain. Uh, but even today, it's still very difficult. So in 2016, 21st Century Cures Act passed, and that is emphasizing interoperability. So now EMR or any kind of electronic medical record system or data, uh, um, what do you call, library or storage needs to have some kind of standards so that when they are transferring it or when they're sharing it, there's some easy, smooth communication between the two entities. Okay, so this is just one example of the definition of interoperability by IEEE. The ability of a system or product to work with other systems or products without special effort on the part of the customer. Here you could imagine the customer being the patient, and the patient has to go through communicate with hospital A to transfer their data to hospital B. Uh, if there is too much work for the patient, that is bad. That shouldn't be considered a good interoperable system. And then second sentence reads, interoperability is made possible by the implementation of standards. So if we have a standard uh, for how, for example, hospital A takes note and hospital B takes note, if there's a standard that they're doing it in a similar fashion, then uh, there is no need for the patient to try to translate A to B. It could just be direct without a third person. So this is the what we are trying to aim um, to achieve interoperability by having standards. So it sounds obvious the benefits of standards so that there's a smooth communication, but there's actually also a disadvantage as well that we need to always consider. One is dominance of one entity. Say that one standard is made by one company, that company grows really big, and it makes dominance in the entire industry. And if you don't adopt it, you're basically completely losing out. So uh, you could think of some of these examples in especially in private companies where one company becomes too dominant. So this could also connect to constraints of or restrict innovation. Um, so if the standard is too rigid um, and too controlling, it minimizes innovation. And I think you could imagine that if it's too restrictive, it's very difficult for one to think outside the box. And then multiple similar standards could be present. And I think there are lots of funny histories about this, where one group that they're doing great job for their society by making this standards, and another part of the world they're thinking the same thing. They make the standards, uh, and then at some point they meet and they notice that they were making the standards both for a certain thing, but now they can't really communicate to each other. So we have to make sure that when we are building a standard, we all come together and agree on it together. So the standard development organizations exist throughout the world, and this specifically for United States. There are the nonprofit, private organizations, and the government. So here are the nonprofit lists. ANSI, the American National Standards Institute, accredits the standardizations that are developed by the standard developing organizations. Some of the standard development organizations, the SDOs, are, for example, the Accredited Standard Committee, the ASC X12, which is regarding business transaction, business such as, for example, billing or insurance. And then there's the HL7 International for message standards, and then the American Society for Testing and Materials, ASTM, for health IT related standards. There is also the Integrating the Healthcare Enterprise, IHE, which showcases some solutions to interoperability and demonstrates that. Now, similar institutions exist internationally as well. One of the big ones, probably you've seen this logo, International Organization for Standards, ISO. They have a committee within the 215, which is mainly handling the health informatics standard. And then within Europe, European Committee for Standardization exists. And then there's a committee within that is responsible for health informatics standards. And then there's the International Telecommunication Union. This is an agency from the United Nations, the UN, that focuses on telecommunication standards in general. So these are some government organizations now in the United States that are making the standards and helping interoperability. In the United States, the biggest entity is the ONC, the Office of the National Coordination for Health IT. They make the Interoperability Standards Advisory. This is supposed to be a one-stop shop for all the institutions to look at and be able to understand how to implement interoperability. But this is actually an advisory. It is encouraged to follow this, but it's not like it is not enforced in any regulatory way. It is encouraged, but not enforced. And then the National Institute for Standards and Technology, NIST, and ONC, along with National Library of Medicine, NLM, are all working to standardize the terminology with HL7 as well. Okay, so that was basically the introduction of Standards and Interoperability, Chapter 5 by Dr. Hersh. I hope it gave you like a bird's eye view of why standards are important for interoperability. And then Dr. Hersh goes into other standards that are, for example, identifier standards, transaction standards, message exchange standards, terminology standards, smart unfire. These are all different important topics that are covered in this chapter. And I hope to cover these in the next videos. But hopefully that was helpful, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.